She said it at the door, tickets in her hand like a weapon. I'm taking Brooks to the concert instead of you. He deserves it more. My name is Zane Merrinor, and I'm a tech project manager who fixes broken systems for a living. Standing there in our Boston brownstone apartment, watching my wife Fina clutch those concert tickets I'd bought for her 36th birthday, I realized our marriage was just another broken system that needed fixing. Okay, I said, checking my watch. 7:15 p.m. The concert started at 8. Fina blinked. She'd been ready for a fight, armed with justifications about how Brooks understood her better, how he actually listened when she talked about her PR job, how he made her laugh. Instead, she got my standard project manager response, acknowledgement without emotion. That's it? Just okay? She shifted her weight, designer heels clicking on our hardwood floor. You're not going to argue? Would it change anything? She studied my face, looking for cracks in my composure. Fina and Merrinor had built her career in public relations by reading people, but after 12 years of marriage, she'd stopped reading me carefully. That was her first mistake. No, she said finally. It wouldn't. Then have fun. She left, and I started my timer. 3 hours until they'd return from the concert. 3 hours to execute a plan I'd been developing since last Tuesday when I'd found the text messages on her tablet. The messages weren't just about the affair, they were about me. Zane's so predictable, she'd written to Brooks. He'll probably buy me something expensive for my birthday and expect me to be grateful. Like throwing money at me makes up for being boring. Brooks had replied, You deserve better. Someone who actually gets you. Maybe I should take you to whatever concert he picks instead of him. I'd love that. I deserve it more than he does anyway. That conversation happened 3 days before I bought the tickets. Fina had mentioned wanting to see this particular band, so I'd spent $400 on premium seats. Good ones too, 4th row center, with backstage access included. Now, alone in our apartment, I opened my laptop and began dismantling our shared life with the same methodical approach I used to debug software systems. First, I paused the automatic lease renewal that was scheduled to process next month. Then, I called the bank and redirected my salary to a new account I'd opened last week. I backed up all our shared cloud storage to my personal drive and changed the passwords. Next, I photographed every receipt related to the concert tickets, including the credit card statement showing the charge to my account. I documented the purchase confirmation emails, the seat assignments, everything. In my line of work, documentation is everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooks. Thanks for understanding, man. This means a lot to Fina. I didn't respond. Instead, I started packing. Here's what most people don't understand about revenge. It's not about anger. Anger makes you sloppy, emotional, prone to mistakes. Real revenge is about precision. It's about identifying the exact pressure points in a system and applying force strategically until everything collapses in the most efficient way possible. I packed only what belonged to me. My clothes, my electronics, my books. The furniture could stay. I had the warranty information for everything, and my name was on most of the purchase agreements. Fina had always been too busy with her career to handle the practical stuff, so I'd managed our household purchases. That was about to become her problem. By 8:30, I'd loaded my car with 3 suitcases and 2 boxes. Everything else I owned was either small enough to carry or valuable enough to retrieve later. I took photos of the apartment's condition, showing everything clean and undamaged. Then I sat down at our kitchen table and wrote a note. Fina, you chose who deserved it. The lease is paused, cloud access is revoked, and I've redirected my income. The furniture stays, but the warranties are in my name. You have until the end of the month to decide what you want to do about the apartment. Zane. I left the note on the counter, turned off all the lights, and drove to my coworker Kyle's house across town. Kyle Morrison had been my backup plan since the beginning. We'd worked together for 6 years, and he'd been through his own divorce 2 years ago. When I'd called him earlier that week asking if his guest room was still available, he'd said yes without asking questions. How'd it go? he asked when I arrived with my suitcases. She took Brooks to the concert. And you're here instead of there because? Because I'm not done yet. Kyle grinned. He was a systems analyst, which meant he appreciated elegant solutions to complex problems. What's the next move? I showed him my phone. I'd been tracking the concert through the venue's social media feeds, and I could see that Fina and Brooks had posted photos from their seats. My seats. The ones I'd paid for. Now I reclaim them. Here's something most people don't know about concert tickets. If you're the original purchaser, and you have the credit card and ID that match the purchase, most venues will work with you if there's a dispute, especially if you can prove that someone else is using your tickets without permission. I called the venue's customer service line and explained the situation. I had my credit card number, the purchase confirmation, and my ID. The representative put me on hold for 10 minutes, then came back with an offer. We can't remove the people from the seats during the show, she said, but we can flag the tickets as disputed and transfer the backstage access to you. If you come down here with your ID and credit card, we can also comp you replacement seats for a future show. What about the backstage access they're using? That gets revoked immediately. Security will escort them out of the backstage area if they try to use it. Perfect. I drove to the venue and presented my documentation. 20 minutes later, I had new tickets for the band's next Boston show and the satisfaction of knowing that Fina's big romantic gesture with Brooks was about to get cut short. My phone rang at 10:45. Fina. What did you do? Her voice was sharp, angry. I reclaimed my property. They threw us out of the backstage area. They said the access was revoked. Because I bought those tickets, with my money, for your birthday, which you gave to someone else. This is ridiculous, Zane. It's just a concert. You're right. It's just a concert. Just like our marriage was just a marriage. Silence on her end. Then, what's that supposed to mean? It means you'll understand when you get home. I hung up and turned off my phone. Kyle was waiting with beer and pizza when I got back to his place. So how does it feel to be a free man? Ask me tomorrow, I said. Tonight was just the opening move. But even as I said it, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Not satisfaction exactly, but clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to fix something that was fundamentally broken. I was just letting it break. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Fina had gotten home around midnight to find an empty apartment and my note. Her messages started confused, then angry, then panicked. Where are you? This isn't funny. You can't just leave without talking to me. Call me back right now. I'm calling your parents. Brooks says you're being ridiculous. That last one made me smile. Brooks had opinions about my behavior. How considerate of him. I made coffee in Kyle's kitchen and checked my email. 3 messages from Fina, 2 from Brooks, and 1 from my mother asking if everything was okay because Fina had called her crying. I responded only to my mother. Everything's fine. Fina and I are separating. I'll call you later today. Then I opened my laptop and began phase 2. Fina had made one critical error in her affair with Brooks. She'd documented everything. Text messages, photos, voice memos she'd sent him when she was supposed to be working late. She'd saved it all in our shared cloud storage, probably thinking I never looked at her personal folders. She was wrong. I'd been monitoring our shared account since Tuesday, not out of paranoia but out of habit. In my job, you learn to check system logs regularly. It's just good practice. When I'd noticed unusual activity in her folders, I'd investigated. What I'd found was a complete record of her relationship with Brooks, including her plans for last night and her real feelings about our marriage. She'd been planning to leave me for months, but she wanted to do it on her terms, in her timeline, with maximum financial benefit to herself. That was no longer an option. I uploaded everything to a secure server and organized it chronologically. Then I created a simple website. Just a timeline of events with supporting documentation. The concert tickets, the affair, the planning, everything. I didn't editorialize or add commentary. I just presented the facts with timestamps and screenshots. Then I sent the link to 3 people: Fina's best friend Dora, Brooks's girlfriend Jules, and my brother Marcus, who knew both Fina and Brooks socially. By noon, my phone was ringing again. This time, it was Brooks. "You need to take that website down right now." Brooks's voice was tight, controlled. He was using his gym teacher voice, the one he used with difficult students. "Good morning to you too, Brooks." "I'm serious, Zane. This is harassment." I was sitting in Kyle's backyard, drinking coffee and watching his neighbor's dog chase squirrels. It was a beautiful Saturday morning in October, crisp and clear. Perfect weather for watching someone else's world fall apart. "Harassment would be posting lies," I said. "Everything on that site is documented fact. Screenshots, timestamps, credit card receipts. I'm actually being quite generous. I left out the voice memos where Fina talks about how boring our marriage is. She's devastated, man. She came to my place crying at 2 a.m. "Your place? Interesting. How did Jules feel about that?" Silence. "Oh, that's right," I continued. "Jules doesn't know about you and Fina yet, does she? Well, she does now. I sent her the link this morning." "You son of a—" "Careful, Brooks. You're the one who decided he deserved my wife more than I did. I'm just making sure everyone knows how deserving you really are." He hung up. I finished my coffee and went inside to check my email. Jules had responded to my message with a single line: "Thank you for telling me the truth." Dora had sent a longer email. "Zane, I had no idea this was happening. Fina told me you two were having problems, but she never mentioned Brooks. I'm so sorry." My brother Marcus had called and left a voicemail. "Holy crap, Zane. Call me when you get this." I called Marcus back first. "Is this stuff real?" he asked without preamble. "Every word." "Fina and Brooks? Seriously? How long has this been going on?" "Based on the messages, about 4 months, but they've been building up to it longer than that." "And the concert thing really happened?" "Last night. She took him to the show I bought tickets for, using the justification that he deserved it more than I did." Marcus whistled. "What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to let the situation develop naturally." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not going to interfere with the consequences of their choices." That was only partially true. I wasn't going to interfere, but I wasn't going to sit back passively either. I was going to help the consequences along. My phone rang again. This time, it was Fina. "Take down that website." "Hello, Fina. How was the concert?" "I'm not playing games with you, Zane. That website is invasion of privacy, and I'm calling my lawyer." "Your lawyer is going to tell you that I can't invade the privacy of my own cloud storage account. Those messages were stored on servers that I pay for, using accounts that are in my name." "You're being vindictive." "I'm being transparent. There's a difference." "Brooks says you're trying to ruin his life." "Brooks ruined his own life when he decided to sleep with his best friend's wife. I'm just documenting the timeline." "It's not that simple, and you know it." Here it was, the conversation I'd been waiting for. The one where Fina would try to rewrite history, to make this whole situation my fault somehow. She was good at this. It's what she did for a living. "You're right," I said. "It's not simple. It's actually quite complex. There's the 4 months of lying, the emotional manipulation, the financial planning you did behind my back, the way you used my own money to buy gifts for him. Should I go on?" "You don't understand what our marriage was like for me." "I understand exactly what it was like. I have your voice memos explaining it in detail." Silence. "That's right, Fina. I have the recordings where you talk about how you're going to leave me after your promotion comes through next month. The ones where you and Brooks laugh about how clueless I am. The one where you practice breaking up with me." "You recorded me?" "You recorded yourself. Voice memos to Brooks, saved in our shared storage. 47 of them, actually. Very thorough documentation of your exit strategy." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Fina was calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much damage I could do. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "I want you to own your choices." "What does that mean?" "It means stop pretending you're the victim here. You made a plan, you executed it, and now you're dealing with the results. The only thing that went wrong is that I didn't react the way you expected." "I never meant for it to happen like this." "You meant for it to happen exactly like this. You just thought you'd control the timing better." Another silence. Then, "Where are you staying?" "That's not your concern anymore. We need to talk about the apartment." "We can talk through lawyers. I've already contacted mine." "Zane, please, can we just—" I hung up and turned off my phone. Kyle found me in his backyard an hour later, reading on my tablet. "How's the war going?" he asked. "It's not a war. Wars have two sides fighting. This is more like a controlled demolition." "Meaning?" "Meaning Fina and Brooks built their relationship on a foundation of lies and betrayal. I'm just removing the supports and letting gravity do the rest." Kyle sat down across from me. "And you're okay with this? Really?" It was a fair question. Kyle had seen me go through the discovery phase, the anger, the hurt. He'd listened to me rant about the unfairness of it all, about how I'd been a good husband who didn't deserve this. But somewhere between finding those messages and watching Fina walk out the door with my concert tickets, something had shifted. The anger had crystallized into something colder and more useful. Clarity. "I'm better than okay," I said. "For the first time in months, I know exactly where I stand." "Which is?" "Free." My phone buzzed with a text message. "Jules, can we meet? I have information you might want." I showed the message to Kyle. "This should be interesting," he said. We met at a coffee shop in Cambridge, neutral territory. Jules arrived first. I recognized her from Brooks's social media posts. She was smaller than I'd expected, with short dark hair and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Thank you for meeting me," she said when I sat down. "Thank you for the information you sent." She'd emailed me additional screenshots that morning, messages between Brooks and other women, including 2 other married women from his gym. Apparently, Fina wasn't his first affair, just his most recent one. "How long have you known?" I asked. "I suspected for about a month. He was being secretive with his phone, staying late at work, the usual signs, but I didn't know it was your wife specifically until I saw your website." "I'm sorry you had to find out that way." She shrugged. "Better to know the truth. I moved out this morning." "How did he take that?" "About as well as you'd expect. He tried to blame you, actually. Said you were manipulating the situation to break us up." "And what did you say?" "I said the screenshots don't lie." We talked for another hour. Jules was smart, direct, and absolutely furious at being lied to. She also had access to information I didn't. Brooks's financial situation, his work schedule, his other relationships. "He's been telling people that Fina seduced him," she said. "Playing the victim. Poor Brooks, trapped by a manipulative married woman." "Is that what he told you?" "That's what he told everyone. But the messages you showed prove that's not true. He was pursuing her as much as she was pursuing him." "What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to make sure people know the truth." Jules had her own social media presence, her own network of friends and co-workers. She also had credibility that I lacked. As the other betrayed party, her version of events would carry weight that mine wouldn't. "There's something else," she said. "Brooks has been using the gym's resources for personal stuff, letting Fina work out there after hours, using the equipment for private sessions. His boss doesn't know about it." "Are you going to tell them?" "I already did, this morning." I stared at her. "You work fast." "I don't like being lied to." We exchanged contact information and agreed to keep each other updated. As I walked back to my car, I felt something I hadn't expected. Respect for Jules. She was handling her situation with the same methodical approach I was using, but with more direct action. My phone rang, as I was driving back to Kyle's place. Unknown number. Zane Merrinor? Speaking. This is Detective Ramirez with Boston PD. I've had a complaint filed against you for harassment and stalking. Can you come in to discuss this? Of course. When? This afternoon, if you're available. I'll be there in an hour. I called Kyle and told him about the police visit. He offered to come with me, but I declined. This was exactly the kind of escalation I'd been expecting. The police station was busy for a Saturday afternoon. Detective Ramirez was a tired-looking woman in her 40s who seemed more annoyed than concerned about the complaint. So, she said, looking at her notes, your wife says you've been harassing her and her friend through social media and that you broke into her personal accounts. Did she mention that we're married and those were our shared accounts? She did not. I showed Detective Ramirez my documentation, the account information showing my name as the primary holder, the lease agreement for our apartment, the marriage certificate, the credit card statements proving I'd purchased the concert tickets. So this website you created, she said, scrolling through it on her computer. This is all from your own accounts? Everything. I didn't hack anything or break into anything. These are messages that were stored on servers I pay for, in accounts that are registered to me. And this Brooks Carvin, he was your friend? He was my best friend for 20 years. Detective Ramirez sighed. Mr. Merrinor, I'm going to be straight with you. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one. You have every right to share information from your own accounts. Your wife has every right to be upset about it, but there's no crime here. I understand. That said, I'd recommend you consider whether this is the best way to handle your situation. What would you recommend instead? Lawyer up and get divorced like normal people? I thanked Detective Ramirez and left the station feeling vindicated. The police visit had been Fina's attempt to intimidate me into backing down. Instead, it had confirmed that everything I was doing was legal. My phone had 6 missed calls from Fina and 2 from Brooks. I didn't return them. Instead, I drove to our apartment building. I still had keys, and there were things I needed to retrieve. Personal items, documents, some electronics I'd left behind in my hurry to leave. The apartment looked exactly as I'd left it, except for the addition of several empty wine bottles on the kitchen counter. Fina had been drinking, which meant she was more rattled than she'd sounded on the phone. I packed another box of belongings and was about to leave when I heard voices in the hallway. Fina and Brooks, coming up the stairs. I could have left through the back entrance, avoided the confrontation entirely. Instead, I decided to stay. It was my apartment too, after all. They came through the door, arguing. Told you this would happen, Fina was saying. I told you he'd try to ruin everything. He can't prove anything, Brooks replied. Those messages could be fake. They're not fake and you know it. Then we'll say they were taken out of context. That's when they noticed me standing in the living room with my box of belongings. What are you doing here? Fina demanded. Collecting my things. Brooks stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. You need to leave. Actually, I don't. My name is on the lease. Your name was on the lease, Fina said. I called the landlord this morning and had you removed. I smiled. You can't remove someone from a lease without their signature. I know because I read the lease agreement. Carefully. Brooks moved closer. Look, man, we can work this out. Just take down the website and we can all move on. Move on to what? You taking my place in my own marriage? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You decided you deserved my wife more than I did. Now you get to find out what that actually means. What's that supposed to mean? I picked up my box and headed for the door. It means you get to deal with the consequences of your choices, both of you. As I reached the door, I turned back. Oh, and Fina? You might want to check your work email. I sent your boss some interesting information about how you've been using company time and resources for personal matters. Her face went white. You didn't. I did. Screenshots of you using the company's social media accounts to coordinate meetings with Brooks. Time logs showing you leaving work early to meet him. company credit card receipts from restaurants where you weren't conducting business. That's not, it's all documented. Have a good evening. I left them standing in the apartment and drove back to Kyle's place, feeling better than I had in months. The war wasn't over, but I was definitely winning. Monday morning brought consequences faster than I'd anticipated. I was at my desk, reviewing project timelines, when my phone buzzed with a text from Jules. Brooks got fired. Thought you'd want to know. I called her during my lunch break. What happened? His boss reviewed the security footage from the gym, found multiple instances of Brooks bringing people in after hours without authorization. Plus, he was using the equipment for personal training sessions and keeping the money instead of reporting it to the gym. How much trouble is he in? They're considering pressing charges for theft of services. He owes them about $3,000 in unreported income. I felt a moment of something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the text message where Brooks had joked about me being too stupid to notice what was happening with my own wife. The sympathy passed. What about Fina? Jules asked. I haven't heard anything yet, but I expect I will soon. I was right. Fina called me at 2:30 crying. They suspended me pending investigation, she said through tears. Mr. Wilburn says I violated company policy about personal use of business resources. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You did this on purpose. I documented facts and shared them with relevant parties. What they chose to do with that information was up to them. You're destroying my life. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just removing the lies that were holding it together. What do you want from me, Zane? What will it take for you to stop? It was a fair question, and I'd been thinking about the answer for days. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? For them to suffer the way I'd suffered? I want you to tell the truth, I said finally. What truth? All of it. The affair, the planning, the way you used our marriage as a convenience while you built something else with Brooks. I want you to own what you did instead of trying to make me the villain. And if I do that, you'll take down the website? If you tell the truth publicly, completely, and honestly, I'll consider it. What does that mean? It means we'll see how honest you're willing to be. She hung up, and I went back to work. That evening, Kyle and I were making dinner when my phone rang. My mother. Zane, honey, I just got off the phone with Fina. She says you're having some kind of breakdown and that you're stalking her online. I sighed. Of course, Fina had called my parents. It was exactly the kind of manipulation I should have expected. Mom, I'm not having a breakdown. Fina and I are getting divorced because she's been having an affair with my best friend. Silence. Then, are you sure? I have 4 months of text messages and voice recordings, I'm sure. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. It's okay, Mom. I'm handling it. Fina said you moved out without warning and that you're trying to ruin her career. Fina left me for another man using concert tickets I bought for her birthday. I moved out rather than sit around waiting for her to come home and lie to me about where she'd been. As for her career, I simply shared factual information about how she was using company resources for personal matters. This doesn't sound like you, Zane. You've always been so forgiving. Maybe that was the problem. After I hung up, Kyle looked at me with concern. You okay? I'm fine. Just tired of being painted as the bad guy in my own story. Your parents believe Fina? They want to believe her. It's easier than accepting that their daughter-in-law isn't who they thought she was. My phone buzzed with a text message. Brooks, we need to talk. This has gone far enough. I showed the message to Kyle. You going to meet with him? Why would I do that? Closure? Answers? The chance to punch him in the face? I considered it. There was something appealing about a direct confrontation, about looking Brooks in the eye and making him explain his choices. But there was also risk, the chance that he'd manipulate the situation somehow, or that I'd say something I'd regret later. No, I decided. I'm not giving him the opportunity to rewrite history or play the victim. Instead, I texted back, everything I needed to say is on the website. If you want to respond, do it publicly. His reply came immediately. This is between us, man to man. It stopped being between us when you decided to involve my wife. He didn't respond to that. Tuesday brought another development. Dora called me at work. Zane, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Did Fina ever tell you that I knew about Brooks? No. Why? Because she's telling people that I encouraged the affair, that I told her she deserved better than you, and that she should leave you for him. I felt a cold anger settle in my stomach. This was classic Fina, rewriting history to make herself look better, even if it meant throwing her best friend under the bus. She never mentioned you knowing about it, I said, and based on the messages I found, she was actively hiding it from you. That's what I thought. She's lying about me to make herself look less guilty. I'm sorry, Dora. I know you two were close. Were is right. I can't be friends with someone who lies about me to cover up her own mistakes. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell people the truth, all of it. Dora had her own social media following and her own network of friends. More importantly, she had credibility with the people who knew both her and Fina. If she contradicted Fina's version of events, people would listen. There's something else, Dora said. Fina's been staying at Brooks's place since Saturday night, but she's telling people she's staying with me. Why would she lie about that? Because staying with Brooks makes her look bad, like she left her husband for another man instead of leaving another man for her husband. The distinction was subtle but important. Fina was trying to control the narrative, to make it seem like the affair was a symptom of our marriage problems rather than the cause of them. Are you going to correct that story? I already started. I posted on social media that Fina isn't staying with me and that people should stop asking me to give her messages. I thanked Dora and hung up, feeling like the walls were finally closing in around Fina's carefully constructed lies. That evening, I decided to check on the apartment. I still had things there, and I wanted to see what condition Fina had left it in. The building's parking garage told me everything I needed to know. Brooks's car was in my assigned space. They were definitely staying there together. I used my key to enter through the back entrance and climbed the stairs quietly. I could hear voices from inside the apartment, loud and argumentative. Told you this would happen, Brooks was saying. I told you he was vindictive. He's not vindictive. He's methodical. There's a difference. What's the difference? Vindictive people act on emotion. Methodical people act on logic. Zane's been planning this. Planning what? All of it. The way he didn't fight about the concert, the way he moved out so cleanly, the website, the documentation, everything. He knew exactly what he was going to do. I found myself oddly pleased that Fina understood what was happening. It meant she wasn't underestimating me anymore. So what do we do? Brooks asked. We tell the truth and hope he backs off. What truth? That we fell in love and that my marriage was over anyway. Was it over? Long pause. It should have been. I'd heard enough. I quietly retreated down the stairs and left the building. Back at Kyle's place, I found him watching television with a beer and a concerned expression. How'd it go? They're staying at the apartment together, and Fina finally understands that I'm not acting on emotion. Is that good or bad? It's honest. For the first time in months, everyone involved knows exactly where they stand. And where do you stand? In control. Wednesday morning brought the development I'd been waiting for. Fina posted a long message on social media addressed to everyone who's been asking about my situation. I want to address the rumors that have been circulating about my marriage and my relationship with Brooks Carvin. It's true that Brooks and I have developed feelings for each other, and it's true that my marriage to Zane was struggling. What's not true is that I planned this or that. I was trying to hurt anyone. Sometimes people fall in love with the wrong person at the wrong time, and there's no good way to handle that situation. I take full responsibility for my choices, and I'm sorry for any pain I've caused. I hope that everyone involved can move forward with dignity and respect. I read the post 3 times, analyzing it like a piece of code. It was well written, carefully crafted to acknowledge fault without accepting full responsibility. She admitted to the affair, but framed it as an unfortunate accident rather than a deliberate choice. She apologized for pain caused, but not for actions taken. It was a masterpiece of public relations spin. It was also completely inadequate. I responded with a post of my own, linking to the website and adding a single paragraph. I appreciate Fina's willingness to finally address this situation publicly. However, her characterization of events as accidental or spontaneous is contradicted by 4 months of documented planning, including voice recordings where she discusses her exit strategy and timeline. I encourage anyone interested in the complete story to review the evidence and draw their own conclusions. Within an hour, my post had been shared dozens of times. Within 2 hours, people were commenting with their own observations about Fina and Brooks's behavior over the past few months. Things they'd noticed, but hadn't understood at the time. By afternoon, the narrative had shifted completely. Instead of being seen as the victim of an unfortunate situation, Fina was being seen as someone who'd been caught lying and was trying to minimize her responsibility. Brooks tried to defend her with his own post, but it only made things worse. He claimed that I was a vindictive ex-husband trying to destroy 2 people who fell in love. But people who knew the timeline pointed out that we weren't divorced yet, and that he'd been my best friend when the affair started. Jules responded to Brooks's post with screenshots of him pursuing other married women, proving that this was a pattern for him rather than a one-time mistake. By evening, both Fina and Brooks had turned off comments on their social media accounts. My phone rang at 9 p.m. "Fina, are you satisfied now?" she asked. "Are you telling the complete truth now?" I told the truth. You told a version of the truth designed to minimize your responsibility. That's not the same thing. What do you want me to say, Zane? That I'm a terrible person who planned to destroy our marriage? That I never loved you? And that everything was a lie? I want you to say what actually happened instead of what you wish had happened. Fine. You want the truth? Here's the truth. I fell out of love with you 2 years ago. I stayed because it was comfortable and because I didn't know what else to do. Brooks made me remember what it felt like to be excited about someone. Yes, I planned to leave you. Yes, I was waiting for the right time. But I never planned for it to happen like this. How did you plan for it to happen? I was going to wait until after my promotion, then sit down and talk to you about separating amicably. I was going to suggest counseling first. Give us a chance to work things out even though I knew it wouldn't help. And Brooks? I was going to end things with Brooks and try to fix our marriage first. If that didn't work, then maybe we'd explore a relationship later. But that's not what happened. No, because you found the messages and decided to blow everything up instead of talking to me. I found the messages where you mocked me and planned your exit strategy. What exactly was I supposed to say to you about that? Silence. I don't know, she said finally. The truth, Fina, is that you wanted to have your cake and eat it too. You wanted to keep me as a safety net while you explored other options. You wanted to control the timing and the narrative. The only thing that went wrong with your plan is that I didn't cooperate with it. Maybe that's true? It is true. And now you're dealing with the consequences of that choice. What happens now? Now we get divorced. You figure out your career situation. Brooks figures out his, and I move on with my life. That's it? That's it. What about the website? What about it? Are you going to take it down? Eventually. When it's no longer necessary. When will that be? When people stop asking me to explain what happened. I hung up and turned off my phone. Kyle found me in the backyard, sitting in the dark. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Tired." But good tired or bad tired? I considered the question. For months, I'd been carrying the weight of a failing marriage without understanding why it was failing. I'd been trying to fix problems I couldn't identify, working to save something that was already gone. Now, for the first time in years, I knew exactly where I stood. I was getting divorced, but I was getting divorced on my terms. I was starting over, but I was starting over with clarity and purpose. "Good tired," I said finally. "So what's next?" "Next, I focus on my own life instead of cleaning up someone else's mess." Sounds like a plan. It was a plan, and for the first time in months, it was my plan, not someone else's. The war was over. I'd won. Now I just had to figure out what victory actually meant. 3 weeks later, I was signing the last of the divorce papers when my lawyer looked up from his desk with something resembling admiration. "I have to say, Mr. Merrinor, this is the most straightforward divorce proceeding I've handled in years." "Meaning?" "Meaning your wife's attorney advised her to accept your terms without negotiation. Apparently, she's eager to finalize this quickly." I wasn't surprised. The past 3 weeks had been a steady erosion of Fina's position. Her suspension from work had become a termination after the company's investigation revealed additional policy violations. Brooks was facing theft charges from his former employer, and their relationship, built on the excitement of secrecy and betrayal, was struggling under the weight of public scrutiny and financial pressure. "There is one thing," the lawyer continued. "She's requesting that you remove the website as part of the divorce agreement." "And what did you tell her attorney?" "I told him that would be a separate negotiation, outside the scope of the divorce proceedings." I'd been thinking about the website for days. It had served its purpose, establishing the truth, protecting my reputation, and ensuring that Fina couldn't rewrite history to make me the villain. But keeping it active indefinitely felt petty, and I wasn't a petty person. "I'll take it down after the divorce is finalized," I said. "Generous of you. Practical. I don't need it anymore." The lawyer nodded and made a note in the file. "The final hearing is scheduled for next Friday. After that, you'll be free to move on with your life." Free. The word had a nice sound to it. I left the lawyer's office and drove to my new apartment, a one-bedroom place in Cambridge, closer to work, with better light and lower rent than the brownstone I'd shared with Fina. I'd been living there for 2 weeks, and it was starting to feel like home. My phone rang as I was making dinner. Jules. "Have you heard the latest?" she asked. "About what?" "Brooks and Fina broke up. Yesterday, apparently. She moved out of his place." I felt a moment of surprise, followed by something that might have been vindication. "What happened?" "Money problems, mostly. Neither of them has a steady income right now, and living together without the excitement of sneaking around showed them how incompatible they actually are." "How do you know all this?" "Brooks called me. Can you believe that? He actually had the nerve to call me and complain about how unfair his life has become." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that actions have consequences, and that he's finally learning what his consequences are." "How did he take that?" "About as well as you'd expect. He blamed you, blamed Fina, blamed everyone except himself." After I hung up with Jules, I sat in my kitchen thinking about the strange trajectory of the past month. 4 weeks ago, I'd been a married man trying to save a relationship that was already over. Now I was single, living alone, and watching my ex-wife and former best friend deal with the wreckage of their choices. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I mostly felt tired. My phone buzzed with a text message. "Fina, can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "About what?" "About ending this properly. The lawyers are handling that. I mean ending it between us, as people who used to care about each other." I considered ignoring the message. We'd said everything that needed to be said. The divorce papers were signed, the property was divided, and we were both moving on with our lives. But there was something in the tone of her message that made me curious. Not hope, I was past that, but a kind of resigned honesty that I hadn't heard from her before. One conversation, I texted back. Public place. We met at a coffee shop near Harvard Square, neutral territory that held no memories for either of us. Fina arrived first, and I barely recognized her. She'd cut her hair short, and she looked tired in a way that went deeper than just lack of sleep. "Thank you for meeting me," she said when I sat down. "What did you want to talk about?" I wanted to apologize. Really apologize, not the public relations version I posted online. Okay. I was wrong. About everything. The affair, the way I handled it, the way I treated you. I was selfish and cruel, and I convinced myself that I was justified because our marriage wasn't perfect. I waited for her to continue. The truth is, I fell out of love with you, but I was too much of a coward to deal with that honestly. It was easier to blame you for being boring than to admit that I'd changed and that I wanted something different. Why are you telling me this now? Because I finally understand what I lost. Not just the marriage, but the person I used to be. The person you fell in love with. People change, Fina. That's not necessarily anyone's fault. The change wasn't the problem. The lying was the problem. The betrayal was the problem. I could have talked to you about feeling disconnected. I could have suggested counseling or separation. Instead, I chose the most hurtful possible way to end our marriage. She was right, and hearing her acknowledge it felt strange. For months, I'd wanted this admission, this recognition of responsibility. Now that I had it, it felt anticlimactic. "What about Brooks?" I asked. Brooks was a fantasy, a way to feel young and exciting again. When that fantasy became reality, it turned out to be much less appealing than I'd imagined. And now? Now I'm 36 years old, unemployed, and starting over completely, which is probably what I deserved. We sat in silence for a few minutes, drinking our coffee and watching college students hurry past the windows. "I'm taking down the website," I said finally. "Thank you. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because I don't need it anymore. I understand. Do you? Because for months, you've been trying to control how this story gets told. The website was never about punishing you. It was about making sure the truth was available for anyone who wanted to know it. I know that now." "Good." Another silence. Then Fina said, "I hope you find someone who deserves you. I hope you find someone who makes you want to be honest." She smiled sadly. "That's probably the nicest thing you could have said to me." I left the coffee shop feeling something I hadn't expected. Closure. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Fina had made choices that hurt me, but they were her choices to make. I'd responded to those choices in the way that made sense to me, and now we were both living with the consequences. That evening, I deleted the website. All of it. The timeline, the screenshots, the documentation. I kept copies for my own records, but I removed it from public access. Then I called my mother. "Hi, Mom." "Zane, how are you, honey?" "I'm good. Really good. The divorce is final next week." "I'm sorry it came to this." "I'm not. It was the right thing for both of us." "Have you talked to Fina recently?" "Today, actually. We had coffee and talked through some things." "And how did that go?" "Better than expected. I think we both have some clarity now about what happened and why." "I'm glad to hear that. Your father and I have been worried about you." "You don't need to worry. I'm doing well. I have a new apartment, work is going great, and I'm looking forward to whatever comes next." "Are you dating anyone?" "Not yet, but I'm open to it." "Good. You deserve to be happy." After I hung up with my mother, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony, looking out over the city. For the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. My phone rang. "Kyle." "How'd it go with Fina?" "Better than expected. She actually apologized. Really apologized." "How does that feel?" "Like the end of something." "Good end or bad end?" "Just an end, which is what I needed." "So what's next for you?" "I don't know, and that's the best part." For 12 years, my life had been defined by my relationship with Fina. My choices, my plans, my sense of myself, everything had been filtered through the lens of our marriage. Even during the affair and the divorce, I'd been reacting to her choices rather than making my own. Now, for the first time since I was 26 years old, I was completely free to decide what I wanted my life to look like. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run along the Charles River. It was a beautiful October day, crisp and clear, with the kind of light that makes everything look sharper and more defined. As I ran, I thought about the past month and what I'd learned from it. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd thought, more capable of protecting myself than I'd realized. I'd learned that truth, presented clearly and without emotion, was more powerful than any argument or manipulation. Most importantly, I'd learned that I didn't need anyone else's permission to live my life on my own terms. When I got back to my apartment, I found a text message from an unknown number. "This is Dora. I wanted to thank you for handling everything with such dignity. You showed a lot of class in an impossible situation." I texted back, "Thank you. I hope you're doing well." "I am, and I hope you find happiness." "I already have, and I meant it." Happiness, I'd discovered, wasn't something that happened to you. It was something you chose, something you built, something you protected. I'd spent 12 years trying to make someone else happy, trying to fix problems I hadn't created, trying to save something that was already gone. Now I was focused on making myself happy, on building something new, on protecting the life I was creating. The divorce hearing the following Friday was a formality. Fina and I sat on opposite sides of the courtroom while our lawyers presented the agreed-upon terms to the judge. The whole process took less than an hour. When it was over, Fina and I walked out of the courthouse together. "So this is it," she said. "This is it. Any regrets?" I thought about the question seriously. Did I regret the 12 years we'd spent together? The dreams we'd shared? The life we'd built before it all fell apart? "I regret how it ended," I said finally. "But I don't regret that it ended." "That's fair." We stood there for a moment. Two people who had once promised to spend their lives together, now preparing to walk in different directions. "Take care of yourself, Zane." "You too, Fina." She walked toward the subway station, and I walked toward my car. I didn't look back. That evening, I called Kyle and suggested we go out to celebrate. Celebrate what? The beginning of whatever comes next. We went to a bar in Davis Square, ordered good whiskey, and toasted to new beginnings. Halfway through our second drink, Kyle raised his glass again. "To my friend Zane, who proved that the best revenge is living well." "Actually," I said, "the best revenge is living honestly." "What's the difference?" "Living well suggests that you're trying to prove something to someone else. Living honestly means you're being true to yourself regardless of what anyone else thinks." Kyle considered this. "And which one are you doing?" "Both, I hope." We finished our drinks and walked home through the cool October night. As we reached Kyle's street, he turned to me with a grin. "So what's the plan for tomorrow?" "Tomorrow I start figuring out what my life looks like when it's just mine." Sounds like a good plan. It's the only plan I've ever made that's completely up to me. And that, I realized, was exactly what I'd been fighting for all along. Not revenge, not justice, not even vindication. Just the right to live my own life on my own terms, without having to justify my choices to anyone else. I'd won that right. Now I had to figure out what to do with it. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, I was just going to enjoy being free.